As the race to find a vaccine for COVID-19 continues, this week the US government has granted a licence for an antibodies test which could determine if you have developed immunity to the disease.
But are these tests effective and how do they work? Well, Dr Zoe joins us now to separate the fact from the fiction. Good morning, Zoe. Lovely to see you. So it's the US government that have approved these tests, and these are a test developed by Swiss pharmaceutical company. What are they? How do they work?
So antibody tests are very different to the tests that were currently available to us here in the UK. So the swab test that we put up our nose and in the back of our throat, that's to detect the virus. So that's completely different. The antibody tests are looking for a person having had an immune response to coronavirus. So when you fight off the coronavirus, your body produces these proteins called antibodies, and they remain in the bloodstream. They're kind of like a flag or a chemical marker. So you can then take a blood sample from a person, and if these antibodies are present, then you know that at some point they've fought off the virus. And it's thought that if you have those antibodies present, then you've fought off one attack from the virus, and you now have immunity from future attacks.
Well, we don't know how long that immunity lasts for.
Exactly. So I think that's one of the concerns, is that, if it was lifelong immunity, that's what we're hoping for. But we just don't know, because we've only had this virus, it's only been around a few months. So we don't know whether that immunity will last for 6 months, 12 months, longer. We just don't know.
So you can currently buy these at-home tests online, or you can go to a clinic and have one done. What process does it take?
So currently, our government here in the UK haven't approved any of these tests as being accurate enough. So although they are available online and you can go to clinics, there are sort of two different types of tests. There's the serology test, which is what's been approved by the FDA in the US. So that means a blood sample being taken in a clinical setting, being analysed in a laboratory in a machine to determine if you've got these antibodies. And also we've heard about these home tests, at-home tests that are like pregnancy tests that essentially could just be posted to your house, and then you could do a little finger prick test and that would tell you if you have the antibodies. Now, as far as our government are concerned, none of these tests yet are currently accurate enough for them to approve them. They need to be almost 100% accurate, because otherwise you could have a test and potentially think that you've had coronavirus and you're immune when actually you're not. But I believe the government are getting closer, and our government are also, because they bought 3.5 million of these tests, but none of them were good enough, so they essentially had to throw them all out. They also started producing a homegrown test, and the government tells us that they're getting closer. They're getting much, much closer. And I think the news from America is good news, because if there is now a test that the American government think is accurate enough, it means globally we are getting closer, but we're just not there quite yet here in the UK for our government to approve any of these tests.
This is the Abbott Alinity I COVID-19 test. They're hoping to ship, and this is the Swiss company, 30 million tests globally this month, 60 million in June. And Abbott, the company, say the tests can give results of 99.6% specificity, so accuracy. So yes. That being the case, 99.6, that's pretty damn close.
That is very, very close. And, I think our government, I would assume that is close enough. But specificity, what that means is that 99.6% of people who haven't had an infection may be told that they have had an infection, which is, 99.6 sounds great, but that still means that if 100,000 people had a test that came back as positive, so therefore they thought they had immunity, 4,000 of those people, that would be a false positive, which would mean that they think they're immune when actually they're not.
Which I understand, but how much in medicine is absolutely 100% guaranteed?
There's no such thing. So you're absolutely right. There's no such thing as completely 100%. You can get close to it, which is why when I hear, and we don't know yet, our government haven't yet remarked on this Abbott test, but when I hear those percentages, I do wonder whether we are very, very close. And, if this Abbott test, we know that our government are also working with pharmaceutical companies such as Abbott. They've worked with them previously, and Roche. So, it's fingers crossed, hopefully, that we're going to hear news in the very near future that our government has validated a test as well. It does seem that the US tend to hit go on these things slightly earlier than we do here. And we have seen in the past, certainly with certain drugs that they've approved for treatment, that they've done it slightly prematurely. So I think our government are just a little bit more careful.
And I guess if you then find out that you do have immunity from one of these tests, if they roll them out and they work, would we be seeing immunity passports come into play?
Well, I think the immunity passport is a very interesting concept. So, you can see the benefits of that. If somebody has immunity, and as Phillip said earlier, we don't know how long-lived that immunity will be, but for the time being, if somebody has immunity, it does make sense for those people to start going back to work because they know that they're safe and they're not going to be passing the disease and they can't get it. But it raises a whole ethical dilemma, I think, about people, if you think about 18-year-olds who are very, very low risk of complications from coronavirus, if you see your 18-year-old mates going and starting university because they've had the infection, it concerns me that there may be a temptation in some people to try and catch it. And that also potentially it's rewarding those people who have had the infection, and not that those people have been irresponsible and that's why they've got it, but people who've been very, very careful and therefore haven't got it might be the ones who have to stay at home.
Yeah.
All right,
Good
Zoe.
point.
Well,
Thank you. Thank you very much.